Hey guys, this is Justin at the Survival Review. So, The Big Lebowski. It's crazy that this movie hasn't been discussed yet on this channel, seeing that to start, it's one of Sam's top 2 favorite movies of all time, and it's one of my favorite comedies of all time. So we both love this movie. It's a fantastic movie, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we're talking about the brand new spin-off film from John Turturro, The Jesus Rolls. This is the over 20-year later spin-off movie that nobody was asking for, starring Jesus Quintana, you know, that character that appeared in like about 2 scenes in The Big Lebowski. Well, now he has his own movie. And yeah, like this movie was announced a while ago, like back in 2016. I remember John Turturro announced he was doing it. And yeah, my reaction was like everybody else's, just why? Why do we need this? But you know what, I was willing to give it the benefit of the doubt, just because this movie actually is a passion project from John Turturro. He wrote and directed it, and like he literally got the Coen brothers permission to use the character, so this isn't like a studio production, this isn't a like studio spin-off movie trying to cash in on the success of Big Lebowski. It is like a passion project, so I'm like, maybe it's worthwhile, like maybe it's something good. And yeah, not really. This movie is weird because it's nothing like The Big Lebowski, which I didn't expect that going in. I knew that it wasn't going to be like that, and I feel like most of the reviews, like really trashing the movie, like really hating on the movie, are from people who are expecting it to be like The Big Lebowski, when it's nothing like that, because this movie is actually a remake of a 70s French film called Going Places, and that's the big movie it takes its inspiration from, not from The Big Lebowski. It doesn't try to have any of the kind of quirks of like a Coen brothers movie, but it tries to have the qualities of, like I said, a 70s French sex comedy. And that's the tone that the movie is going for. And since I kind of was reading up on the movie, I knew that going in, so like my issues with the movie don't stem from it not feeling like Big Lebowski or not being anything like that movie, because I knew it wasn't going to be. And that's not the problem. In fact, like this is a really weirdly unique idea to take like a remake of a cult French film, but have it star a side character from another movie in it. It's a really bizarre and kind of unique idea, but it just doesn't quite work, because the movie begins with Jesus getting out of jail and meeting up with his best friend, who is also an ex-con, and immediately after that, they steal a car, basically just to go for a joyride and visit Jesus' mom, and then they end up getting their female friend along with them, and they basically just go on this kind of adventure, you know, stealing cars to get by and running from the police. And it's a very episodic movie. It doesn't really have a plot. It's just kind of like these people just doing things, you know, or going places. And that's basically the plot of the movie. And just like there's a lot of like segments with like big name actors who kind of pop up here and there and kind of have like cameo parts throughout the movie as these supporting players that they come across on their journey. And so the movie actually really does feel like a 70s film, like in the tone and even in the style, because the movie like stylistically has kind of this kind of basic kind of look to it, and that's not really a negative. I'm not trying to say that as a bad thing. I'm not saying like John Turturro's like style is bad, but it has this kind of basic kind of like stripped down, almost like independent type of nature to it. I enjoyed that style. I kind of like that. The problem just is that the movie's not very interesting or even funny, and for a movie that's only 85 minutes long, it drags. Like, this movie feels a lot longer than it is. There's one point where I had to pause the movie to do something, and I saw that I was only 33 minutes in, and I was like, Jesus, like I thought I was a lot farther along in the movie than I was at that point. And that's the biggest problem. And like I said, there's a couple chuckle moments here and there that are kind of funny, but for the most part, the humor, I don't know, just the timing of it just doesn't quite work, and a lot of the jokes just don't really work. I didn't really find the movie funny. I didn't really find the movie very engaging, and that's the biggest problem, especially because the cast is all really good. There's a lot of big name actors in this movie who pop up every once in a while. And they're all solid. You have Bobby Cannavale as his best friend character, who I thought was fun, playing a more kind of loose, kind of more comedic role that I normally see him play. So that was kind of fun to see. Christopher Walken appears in the movie in the opening as the warden of the prison, and that opening bit actually was my favorite part of the whole movie. I actually really liked the opening of the movie, and I really wish the rest of the movie continued that tone, because it had a more kind of sillier tone to it when the film opened. Because you see Jesus being released, you have this kind of music starting to play, almost like mariachi type of like music being played in the background. It's just like the soundtrack. But then he walks by a jail cell and there's two guys in the jail cell playing guitars and singing the music, which is a weird kind of like goofy moment that the rest of the movie doesn't really have. When you first see Jesus and you see John Turturro, it's fun to kind of see him back in the role as Jesus and seeing that character again. It is fun to see. Then you have him like interacting with Christopher Walken, and you can tell Christopher Walken's having a good time, and some of his dialogue is funny, especially when he's just like, you know, thank you for taking charge of our bowling team and having us win the national championship and stuff like that. I thought that was funny.
Keep on bowling, boy.
So yeah, I liked that opening scene. I was like, okay, this movie might be pretty good. And then it just fell off after that and never really recovered. And even though I like that scene with Jesus and the warden, that scene includes one kind of really annoying retcon that they had to put in here in order to make this movie like work and not feel awkward. Because, you know, what's the big joke in The Big Lebowski?
8-year-olds, dude.
Is that he exposed himself to an 8-year-old, and you know, you don't want to have a movie starring, you know, a pedophile, so they retcon that whole incident into a misunderstanding. So he really didn't purposely do that. And I don't know, I kind of, like, that was kind of cringy to me that they had to do that. I mean, I get it, they had to do it in order to actually, you know, let the movie star him and not feel awkward. But then kind of like undoes Walter's lines in The Big Lebowski. And now when you watch that scene and he goes, you know, 8-year-olds, dude, you're just like, oh, well, no, he didn't really. It was an accident. And it's kind of, it makes that joke less funny. And then going back to John Turturro as Jesus, like I said, at first it's fun to see him because it's just fun to see him as his character. But the Jesus character is just not interesting enough to hold the whole movie. Honestly, like, I found his character more interesting and a lot funnier in his 2 short scenes in The Big Lebowski than in the entirety of this movie. And I think kind of the problem stems from the fact that, like, his character is kind of a dick, but he's not really, like, charming or really engaging as a character. So they're kind of like, why am I watching these 2, like, crooks just steal cars and go across country, like, on their adventure? I didn't feel like the need to watch the story because the characters didn't grab me, and the character of Jesus did not grab me in this movie. Like I said, well acted. John Turturro, you know, like I said, despite being a little awkward at times, wasn't bad. I just didn't find the character like that gripping, and I feel like he truly shouldn't have had his own movie. I didn't really think it works, especially this type of movie. It just, I don't know, it doesn't quite gel. And I think one of the things, the problems stem from what I looked up in regards to the original film Going Places, is that the movie is about these 2 young men, and it's kind of like them fighting against the establishment and stuff, and that's why they're doing all this like robbery and all these like this like sex stuff in there. And it doesn't quite work when it's 2 like middle-aged men running around doing that. It just kind of feels like, I don't know, it just doesn't quite work. And I will give the movie this, it doesn't hit you over the head with references to The Big Lebowski. It doesn't overdo it, they don't constantly mention the movie. But that being said, they do reference the movie and they do reference some stuff in it. It's a little cringy. Of course, the obvious, him licking the bowling ball, and there is a whole scene of him bowling. There's actually one scene with him bowling that I feel like was mostly put in there just for the trailer and for the poster to make this look more like it's connected to The Big Lebowski when it really isn't. That being said, that scene wasn't that bad. If that scene actually had good energy to it, better energy than the rest of the movie did, to be honest. But that aside, there's also other references. There's numerous times where he references to shoving a gun up somebody's ass, and then there's a time where he mentions someone's Johnson. But aside from that, they don't overdo it like for the majority of the movie, and I do appreciate that. But when it does happen, it's, you know, it's really obvious. Overall, I can't say this is the worst movie. Like, I've seen some reviews for this movie calling it, like, god-awful and, like, this, like, terrible thing. Like I said, I think a lot of those reviews come from people like comparing it to the Big Lebowski. I don't think it's that awful of a movie. And like I said, it was kind of cool to see, just to see that character again for a little bit. So it just kind of got annoying as it went on. But yeah, this movie doesn't quite work. It's not funny. It drags. And I feel like the Jesus character wasn't the best character to give his own movie. Like, sure, it would have been cool to see more of him, because, like, he's barely in the Big Lebowski. And he probably would have worked better if you saw him, like, a little bit more, but starring in his own film, the character's not interesting enough to carry it, and the story isn't there. It just doesn't quite work. So, would I recommend this movie? Not really. I would recommend if, like, the clip is online of the opening scene with Christopher Walken as the warden. You know, I would recommend that just to check out. Like, you get to see Jesus again one more time. It's a fun little scene with Christopher Walken. But aside from that, I wouldn't really recommend checking the movie. I don't really think it's worth it. So yeah, that's the Jesus Rolls. And that's all I have to say for now. So until next time, I'll talk to you guys later.